I now have great pleasure in introducing to you our second international speaker, Dr. Jeff Young. Jeff flew in after 2.5 days of travel and hopped in a car and had a 2-hour drive up to Gatton to talk to the university students up there about his passion, which is dysexing, and particularly early age dysexing. And he's a very warm and passionate person, and we're absolutely delighted to have him here. So would you please welcome Jeff? And that's if you want to do a pointer in the middle.
Okay. Just can't hold it that close to me. Okay. Well, good morning, and thanks for having me here. Richard's kind of I took it from his talk that he's kind of a glass half full kind of guy, and I consider myself kind of a glass half empty kind of guy. You know, having said that, I coach distance running. I've coached rugby, played rugby for 16 years. And I'm a firm believer your only obligation in life is to try. You know, the question is, are we trying with a purpose in mind? Are we making a difference? And I think those are things you have to ask yourself every day. I worked animal control. I went to vet school and worked animal control, and it changed my view of the world and how we treat our pets. It was phenomenal to me. And I understand Dr. Hurley was the same way, which is kind of interesting that we've come to so many of the same conclusions. She's in shelter medicine. I'm a private practitioner. Assume for a minute that I am in it for the money. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with making money, quite frankly. Everybody knows the 5 freedoms. And, you know, this is great. And I believe in all this. But this is the half empty kind of side of me is, okay, from the age of 15 to 44 for females in the world, the number one cause of death and disability is men. Okay? That's not a very positive thing. One third of the population of the world are basically in a starvation state. 1/3 are underfed, and 1/3, we're probably are probably overfed. Okay? 15 million children starve to death every year. That's a glass half empty to me. Now, do I believe we should still be doing what we do in the humane field? Absolutely. There's an 80-some% correlation between animal abuse and child abuse. People who beat their wives beat their dogs, and vice versa. There's no mass murderer who didn't start out murdering dogs and cats and other things. So it's all interrelated, you know, and it all has to do with, as far as I'm concerned, evolution for us as a species. I'm talking basically about spay-neuter, prepubertal spay-neuter. What's the ideal age? I know there was some questions about, because I put on there for, you know, if you're a humane society, nothing should leave your place without being fixed. Period, end of discussion. I just think in this day and age, if you're sending out an animal intact, you're doing something wrong. Having said that, they do it all over the United States. They do spay-neuter contracts and things like that, and they don't work. They absolutely don't work. As a private practitioner, this is the money part of me, I would rather see you several times, give you vaccines, give you worming medication, talk to you about flea and tick control, all these nice things, and make money as I go along, and then spay and neuter your animal at 16 or 20 weeks when you're getting your last set of shots. And that's perfectly logical. Okay, they're still not going to breed. Okay, but the Humane Society part of me, and I work with a lot of humane groups, you know, if they can, in Colorado, you're not supposed to adopt before eight weeks of age. Having said that, if I had $1 for every time someone told me it was 8 weeks and it was clearly more like 4 or 5 weeks, you know, I mean, people fudge on ages or they don't know ages. I will spay and neuter anything. I've done them 24 hours old. If they have a heartbeat, I will fix them. I have no problem with that. That's my only consideration. They have to have a heartbeat. It's not very successful otherwise. So as young as 24 hours, prepubertal spay-neuter, Bob Christensen wrote a book, Save Our Strays, and this was quite a few years ago. At that time, about 5% of the veterinarians are doing prepubertal spay-neuter work. Currently, it's probably closer to 10 to 12%. So it is going up, and it probably is going to plateau. I don't ever see it being much more than 20%, but it's irrelevant in that the people who are doing it are doing large scale. They're really good at what they're doing. And I personally consider it, you know, one of the best kept secrets in veterinary medicine. As a veterinarian, you start doing it, anesthesia time's less. There's so many positive things. And, you know, they don't die. It's just amazing. Pre-pubertal animals don't die under anesthesia from being spayed. They call it the bloodless spay. You can actually take anything under 3 months of age and go and just tear everything out. Just tear and cut and never suture anything, and they will not die. You know, it's pretty phenomenal, and it's well written up in the literature. That's how people used to do it. I remember being at a Humane Society once, and they had a whole bunch of really sick kittens. And I tried to talk them into euthanasia, and they wouldn't do it. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and spay them. You know, their eyes were goobed shut. You know, they probably had distemper. I don't know. You know, they were really, really sick. But they didn't want me to leave without fixing them, and they didn't want me to euthanize them. So I spayed them all, and I gave them a little bit more anesthetic than I probably should have, thinking maybe they'll just go to sleep and die. I come in the next day, and they're all up in their cage running around eating. You know, and it's like, okay, you really can't kill them. You know, it's pretty amazing to me. So pre-pubertal spay and neuter has been done. There's actually things that go back to 300 BC where they talk about fixing dogs. So it's been around for a long time. Medford, Oregon, the birthplace of pre-pubertal spay and neuter, I would say, is Medford, Oregon. And once again, it's not the small animal vets. We tend to be a little more anal retentive and a little more like we think we're doctors instead of being veterinarians. Where large animal vets tend to be more like veterinarians and not doctors, so they're more common sense. It's the herd health approach. And the gentleman who was doing their spay-neuter work back in the 70s came over from the large animal side. And what he found is that they would adopt animals out, they'd go out and have a litter, and he'd get the litter back from the animals they adopted out last year. And next year, he has another litter from those same animals. And he's like, this is crazy. Why don't we just spay and neuter everything? I do it in pigs. You know, we used to do it in pigs. We used to do it in sheep, you know, at a much younger age. So why don't we just do it to all the animals? And the board of directors said, good idea, let's do this. It wasn't controversial. Nobody knew anything about pre-pubertal spay neuter, and he just did it. And what they found is the euthanasia rate and the return rate just dropped, just went down dramatically. And Medford, Oregon is a small town, so it's probably a little easier to do in smaller situations. But that place is definitely given, you know, the name of being the birthplace of pre-pubertal spay and neuter. Leo Lieberman would be the father of pre-pubertal spay and neuter. He wrote an article in '87, incredibly controversial. I mean, you can't believe the letters that went out over, you know, this is horrible, this is horrible. Now, at the same time, we vasectomize babies at what age? You know, I mean, not vasectomize, I'm sorry, circumcised babies, you know, without anesthesia, I might add, without anesthesia. We probably should vasectomize them too, quite frankly. The point being is he had made a very good case, and it's the same thing. He just saw a tremendous number of animals being euthanized for no other reason than being born. So how do you stop that? You spay and neuter them prior to maturity. I graduated in '89. I met with Leo Lieberman in the summer of '89. And ever since then, I've been gun-ho, spay, neuter, anything that has a heartbeat. So, you know, the first real study, double-blind kind of study, 7 weeks versus 7 months, came along in '91 at the University of Florida, and basically they came up with nothing negative at that time. The biggest fallacy that you heard back in those days, if you fix them, it'll stunt their growth. The exact opposite is true. The hormones of puberty are involved in bone plate closure, so what happens, they actually grow a little bit taller. It's pretty insignificant. It's barely significant. And, you know, I don't lose a lot of sleep over that.